Dear God, today as this session opens, we pray that your presence will be before us and everyone who serves in the decision-making process of our city. We pray for direction which will lead our city to be strong and unified. May we continue the legacy of our founders. May we be granted this day the wisdom to make decisions which will be for good of our city. We also pray for your special blessing on all those who are working to transform our city and make it a better place to live and work. Amen. Please join me now in honoring America. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Again, good evening. Would the recording secretary please call the roll?
Councilor Martin? Councilor Mendonça?
Here.
Councilor Mercier?
Here.
Mayor Milanazzo?
Here.
Councilor Murphy?
Here.
Councilor Broderick?
Here.
Councilor Caulfield? Councilor Dakota? 7 present.
7 present, 2 absent. Thank you.
Here.
Oh, Councilor Elliott.
Oh, did I? Yeah. I beg your pardon. 7 present.
7 present, 2 absent.
All right.
Chair would recognize Councilor Mercier.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to offer a moment of silence in Docking Chamber for Leo Jones, Jr. Mr. Jones enlisted in the United States Navy at the age of 19 and served his country for 4 years before returning to graduate from Bentley University with a degree in accounting. Leo worked for FEMA for the past 25 years, working all over the United States during emergencies as needed, and also worked in Guam and the United States Virgin Islands, especially St. Croix. He is survived by his brother Norman, his sister Diana Caulfield, and her husband Edward Bud Caulfield. Our sympathy to his family. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilor Mercier. Any other moments of silence? Let us all rise. A moment of silence in Docking Chamber. Thank you. May he rest in peace. Again, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Before we actually get into the agenda, if I could just take a moment to introduce Ken Rossetti. Ken is with us this evening. He's our newest Assistant City Solicitor. He's a graduate of the University of Virginia with a Bachelor of Arts degree in French, and he's a graduate of the Boston College Law School. Ken brings over 13 years of litigation experience and municipal law experience, having recently worked in the city of Malden in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. So I want to welcome Ken to the City Solicitor's Office, and thank you for being here this evening. Thank you. Thank you. The first order of business is to accept the minutes of the September 27th meeting. Anybody have any comments or questions? Motion by Councilor Broderick, seconded by Councilor Mercier.
Yes.
Councilor Mercier.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a question. Can we expect to get September 13th?
We're going to get September 13th next Tuesday. We
Okay.
actually did hear from Councilor Mendonça and others, and
Thank
we're going
you.
to have those next week. Thank you. So we have a motion to accept the September 27th meeting minutes. All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Opposed? It's a vote. Thank you. Next item, moving on to the city manager's portion of the agenda, responses to council motions and requests. Anyone like to be heard on any responses at this point? Councilor Mendonça.
I just want to thank the manager and the staff for taking care of my question about the vibration.
Noted as your motion instead of
Okay, very good. So thank you for looking into that. Seems like you're not detecting anything with when you're actually trying to measure it with a seismograph, but I appreciate them looking into it, making sure it's not a problem.
Thank you. Anything else on the communications? Hearing none, motion by Councilor Mendonça, seconded by Councilor Elliott to accept the communications placed on file. All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Opposed to vote. Next motion, we have an ordinance, quarterly traffic. In City Council ordinance, an ordinance amending the new code of ordinance for the city of Lowell, Massachusetts with respect to Chapter 266 thereof, entitled Vehicles and Traffic. We have a number of areas of the city that will be dealt with under this ordinance. I'm going to ask for a motion to waive the full reading by Councilor Elliott, seconded by Councilman Mendonça. All those in favor of waiving the full reading signify by saying aye. Opposed, it's a vote. The chair would entertain a motion to refer the ordinance to a public hearing on October 25th.
So moved.
So moved by Councilor Elliott, seconded by Councilman Mendonça. All those in favor of Councilman Mendonça.
Yes, it just happened that over the weekend, someone spoke to me about the changes that are occurring on Jackson Street and the new Appleton Mills, and they told me that some of the apartments in the Appleton Mills are for handicapped people, and this is deleting some handicap spots, and what they had asked me about was whether there were going to be handicap spots on a street near the Appleton Mills to serve those people. So if DPD could just look at it and before we have the public hearing, maybe give us an update if possible.
Mr. Bakey is here.
Becky's here to respond.
I believe the handicapped spaces that are being deleted in the ordinance are being compensated for with some new handicap restricted spaces that are going to be on Jackson Street. It's just as a result of the complete, basically, rebuilding of Jackson Street that's going on right now. The exact location is going to shift. But basically, in the area in front of where the Lowell Community Health Center will be moving into, there'll be a series of spaces that'll be available for handicap use, which is basically where there have historically been handicapped spaces along Jackson Street. There also obviously are handicap spaces in the garage, and if there is a particular need that somebody has, we can also look at whether designating a space along Canal Street, right in the Appleton Mill yard, would be valuable for somebody as well. They certainly can contact DPD.
Yeah, they were actually in the Appleton Mill, so it'll be worth just taking a look to make sure. I knew there was some in the garage, and I mentioned that to them. That's one place, but that would be a distance for somebody who's handicapped to go from the garage if they had an apartment at the Appleton Mill. So if we could just make sure that there will be handicap parking available to them somewhere closer, that'll be fine with me. Thank you.
We will do that.
Thank you, Councilman Mendonça. Councilor Marcia?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And while Adam Bakey is still here, we did have some discussion in the back central neighborhood area about Elm Street, and we're going to obliterate all parking on that particular street, because I thought they were concerned about some parking that
I think they were concerned about Mr. Marchand's been working on the neighborhood initiative, so.
The back central area is being looked at for a number of ways to increase parking. Currently, there are streets that have parking on both sides. Some have parking on one side only. Some have parking on those sides. Elm Street, Walnut, a number of them are being revisited. A number of them are being reconstructed, and then the signs are being put back as per ordinance. But as part of the manager's neighborhood initiative in this area, the traffic engineer is looking at ways of increasing on-street parking, possibly by looking at reconfiguring the streets a bit. They're obviously very narrow streets, and so in some cases you can't have parking on both sides. But there isn't a plan to eliminate the parking.
If I may, I think Councilor Mercy is speaking to the fact that the ordinance, I think what happened was when we did when we redid the street out there, we looked at the ordinance, and the ordinance prohibits parking on Elm.
Right.
So we
That's
need
right.
to address that in the ordinance
That's
to
right.
put
We
parking
need,
back out
we
there.
do. We need to
Right.
retool this.
On one side or.
Sure,
right.
thank you,
Okay.
thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else on the ordinance? All in favor of referring it to a public hearing for October 25th indicate by saying aye. Opposed to vote. Next item on the agenda, the order of taking for Rita Street Extension. In City Council, order of taking acceptance of Rita Street Extension to take by eminent domain in fee for a certain parcel of land in the City of Lowell for municipal purposes, to wit, the layout and acceptance of Rita Street Extension and other municipal purposes associated therewith. Motion by Councilor Broderick, seconded by Councilor Murphy to waive the full reading. All those in favor of waiving the full reading signify by saying aye. Opposed to vote. This needs to go to a public hearing as well. October 25th. Motion by Counsel Elliott, seconded by Counsel Martin, that this order of taking and acceptance of street as public way, Reeder Street Extension, be forwarded to a public hearing October 25th. Any discussion? All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Opposed, to vote. Next item, in City Council vote, creating a Commonwealth of Massachusetts designated cultural district in the City of Lowell. Whereas the City of Lowell, acting through the Cultural Organization of Lowell and in coordination with the Massachusetts Cultural Council, desires to create a Commonwealth of Massachusetts designated cultural district in the City of Lowell, which is a specific compact geographical area within the City of Lowell, which has and will further foster a concentration of art and cultural festivals, facilities, activities, and assets. And whereas this Commonwealth of Massachusetts designated cultural district, which is being established under the provisions of Mass General Law, Chapter 10, Section 58A, and which shall not be a zoning district under Mass General Law, Chapter 40A, will serve as an easily identifiable center for culture, artistic, and related economic activities. And whereas said Commonwealth of Massachusetts designated cultural district shall comprise the area as outlined and shown on the attached proposed Massachusetts designated cultural district map marked A, and whereas to engender public support and interest in the creation of this Commonwealth of Massachusetts cultural district, an advertised public hearing thereon was held on October 18th prior to the formal action on this vote. Now therefore be it voted by a majority vote of the City Council as follows: that there is established in the City of Lowell, acting through its cultural organization of Lowell, in coordination with the for-profit and nonprofit partners in the district and Mass Cultural Council, a Commonwealth of Massachusetts designated cultural district as authorized by Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 10, Section 58A, and is shown on the attached proposed Massachusetts designated cultural district map marked A, which district has and will further foster a concentration of art and cultural facility activities, assets, and related economic activities. There's no objection. Second reading by title. In City Council vote, creating a Commonwealth of Massachusetts designated cultural district in the City of Lowell. What's the wish of the council? Move approval? Move approval by Council Mercy, second by Council Mendonça. Question? Council Mercy, then Council Elliott.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Let me just say that this is a very interesting inventory that was put together about the different assets that we have in the city. There's 20 open studios, there's 8 performing spaces, so much information that I thought it was unbelievable. I know we don't have enough time to go through everything, but there's 4 theaters, the Lowell Memorial Auditorium, UMass Lowell Center, Merrimack Repertory Theater, but I just want to know, where is the Middlesex Black Box Theater? I have no idea where that is. Does anybody know that?
Mr. Bakey knows everything.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, I do know this one. It's the building that is across the street from the Lowell Memorial Auditorium, right on the Concord River. It used to be the Middlesex Community College Cyber Cafe, and before that, I think
It used
it
to
has
be
a storied
Dylan's
history.
Cleaners. Cleaners, yes.
Used to be Chevy's.
Chevy's. Well, I go
to be
back,
Chevy's.
and it used to be the Cleaners.
too.
What-
Right.
Dylan's Cleaners, yeah. See, I go back with Moses, so, not this Moses, but, you know. But anyway, yeah, thank you, I didn't
You're
know
welcome.
that.
Just
Good.
while I have the microphone, if I may, I believe this actually needs to have a public hearing.
It says October 18th.
Okay.
Is it going to be held here? Is it that?
I think it needs, I believe before the council takes action, it needs to have had a public hearing, I believe.
Okay, so
I
this
think
should
that's
then
a
be
state
referred to a
requirement.
public hearing.
That would be, I think, ideal.
Okay. And we have a date of October 18th. So that would be the vote, then I apologize.
Yeah.
So then by Council Mercy, second by
Yes.
Council Mendonça,
Public
that
hearing.
this vote be referred to a public hearing to be held on October 18th. Council Elliott, question?
I just, what is the driving force behind this, Mr. Bakey? Are there financial incentives for if we create this district, or is it?
Well, it's a brand-new program that the state legislature just approved with the strong support of the Massachusetts Cultural Council. And at present, the Cultural Council is basically looking for communities to participate in the program. They have not yet identified any specific funding streams that are going to be tied to it, but it is our expectation, based on their strong support for the program, that many of their competitive programs in the future will probably at least put some favorable weight toward projects that are in a designated cultural district. And obviously, we want to make sure that we receive the recognition and the marketing, which they will be doing, that comes from their placing their marketing priorities on the areas that are designated in the state.
Right. There's no restrictions, there are no, it's just creating a district, so in the future, perhaps there's opportunity, some of the empowerment zones or things of that nature.
Well, it actually isn't some of those. Those tend to come with funding. But
Right.
the one obligation that the city would have is that there would be some reporting requirements annually to basically document the creative economy output that's coming from the district. But that's the type of work that Cool already does in other respects, and Cool would basically take the lead on doing that documentation. So they don't see this as a significant added burden to them.
Okay, thank you.
Council Martin?
While Mr. Bakey's there, and I assume there's no additional restrictions on the use of privately owned property. It's really just to benefit.
It's basically a marketing designation. It
Right.
doesn't have any bearing on private property. It's not a zoning amendment or anything like that.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else before we? Okay, all those in favor of sending it to a public hearing October 18th signify by saying aye. Opposed, it's a vote. Next item, in the city council vote, authorizing the city council to approve the execution by the city manager of the memorandum of agreement between the city of Lowell and the Boot Mill Developer LLC. Whereas Boot Mill Developer LLC, its successors, assigns, and affiliates, the developer and the city of Lowell, either acting on its own or through the Lowell Development and Financial Corporation, in either case referred to herein as the city, herein the developer and the city will be referred to as the parties. And whereas the developer is a limited liability company, the members of which are or will be an affiliate of Consigli Construction Incorporated and Boot West Developer LLC, which latter entity is in turn a limited liability company, the members of which are or will be an affiliate of Wind Development and Reese Locken Development LLC. Whereas the developer intends to purchase and redevelop the portion of the historic Boot Mill complex comprised of Boot Mill numbers 3, 4, 5, West Bays 20.1 through 22.1, and Picker House, which redevelopment will consist of approximately 43,000 square feet of commercial space and 77 residential units. And whereas because the importance of the Boot Mill complex and the property to the economic health and the ongoing redevelopment of the city of Lowell, the city has vested interest in the successful completion of the project, and whereas the financing for this redevelopment project involves so-called new city funding from various existing programs and related credits as set forth in this memorandum of agreement, and whereas under the regulations of the United States Department of Housing and Urban Development, which govern the Section 108 and Community Development Block Grant Programs, all revenues to the city from additional city operations interest and additional city disposition interest as described in this agreement shall be considered program income to the Community Development Block Grant Program. Whereas the city manager requests and recommends approval of the agreement, a copy of which is attached here to and marked A. Now therefore be it voted by the City Council of the City of Lowell as follows, that the City Council of the City of Lowell approve the execution of by the city manager of the City of Lowell of the memorandum of agreement between the City of Lowell Boot Mill Developer LLC, its successors, assigns, and affiliates for the purchase and redevelopment of the portion of the historic Boot Cotton Mills complex comprised of Boot Mills number 3, 4, 5, West Bays 20.1 to 22.1, and Picker House, which redevelopment will consist of approximately 43,000 square feet of commercial space and 77 residential units, and including the project financing plan as set forth in said memorandum of agreement. Be it further voted that the city manager on behalf of the city of Lowell be and hereby is authorized to execute any and all documents necessary in connection with said memorandum of agreement referred to above. There's no objection, second reading by title. In city council vote, authorizing the city council to approve the execution by the city manager of the memorandum of agreement between the city of Lowell and the Boot Mill Developer LLC. Councilor Elliott.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So this was a loan that was defaulted on for $2.5 million. And the city, we were the subsidiary, we went out for a subsidiary mortgage on this.
That's correct.
So we're out $2.5 million of HUD money.
Well, right.
this
in the 108
OU.
loan program, right, the HUD program. It's not city monies. It's city monies, but it's through the HUD program, correct?
Right. So could you explain, and I did read through it, it's a little bit confusing, but maybe even for the people at home, maybe you can go through exactly what happened and what we're trying to do. We're trying to recoup some of the money, but essentially, the property the owners went into default, went into bankruptcy, foreclosure, and TD Bank North, they had the first mortgage on this, correct?
Correct. This is a, and I'm going to let Mr. Bakey, who's more well-versed in all the elements of this, go through all the details, but the short description is this is a loan that was made in 2005 to the developer of the Boot Mills complex at the same time that they obtained private financing through TD Bank North, and over the course of time, they defaulted, as you described, and we have now been in the process of TD Bank North held the first mortgage on this property. They have since taken care of their losses. We've been working on trying to work a deal with a subsequent developer whereby we would reduce the amount of losses that were being faced by the city.
Mr. Manager, can I ask you a question, because I don't understand this. When this goes to a foreclosure, and it cites it in the memo, the foreclosure auction, it eliminated the subordinate mortgages held by the city of Lowell. How
Mr. Bakey, can we do it?
how does that occur?
We'll start by explaining the Section 108 program is a federal loan guarantee program that is somewhat unusual in that the city borrows money from HUD, and as our collateral for that borrowing, we pledge our future community development block grant allocations. And then in this case, back in 2005, this money was loaned to a developer to further a project or support a project that the city supported at the time. And subsequent to that, the original developers, as has been explained, basically failed to proceed with the project, ran into financial difficulty, defaulted on this loan as well as many other financial obligations related to the project. We were the second position mortgage on the property behind the first position, which was TD Bank North. TD Bank North also, they were in default to TD Bank North, so TD Bank North went ahead, after actually working with us for a while and holding off longer than they typically would in these situations, did go ahead and hold a foreclosure auction. At the foreclosure auction, typically the bank will buy their own note back, but in this case, actually, Consigli Construction, who also was owed money as the contractor for the project, for the failed project initially, ended up feeling that they were in a better position to actually bid at the foreclosure auction. They purchased the property at the foreclosure auction and became the owners of the property, and they are the owners today. They proceeded to pay the back real estate taxes that were owed to the city, which is a good thing. We recovered over $400,000 in real estate taxes that we were owed at that point. And they had talked to us even before bidding on it and expressed a willingness to work with us to see how we could try to recover some of the city's interest in the property. And that essentially, Consigli is now a partner with Wynn Development. Wynn has a very good track record doing a number of very successful projects here in Lowell. And the two of them, as partners, essentially committed to working with the city to find a way to do a deal that obviously makes sense economically for them, but also allows the city to recover as much of what we need to pay back to HUD that we originally lent into this project as possible. And the agreement does that in two ways. First, we are paying back the money to HUD over a 20-year period, so it's actually a relatively small amount each year. They have agreed to actually pay a portion of that, and it will fluctuate depending on what the actual operating revenues of the project is in any given year, but it will never be less than $25,000, and it will never be more than $50,000 in any given year. But somewhere, they will give us between $25,000 and $50,000 a year to help with the servicing of the loan.
And how much do we have to pay HUD?
Well, again, it varies a little bit, but we are actually in the process of securing permanent financing at today's extremely low rates for that loan. But basically, we owe somewhere between $100,000 and $150,000 a year in principal, plus interest, which at the moment is nominal, but obviously may go up a little bit over time. They also, to offset a portion of the money that they're not helping us pay back along the way, they're giving us essentially a 10% ownership interest in the property. And their development plan for this project is to initially develop it as a 77-unit residential apartment building and 43,000 square feet of leasable commercial space. But they also intend, after there's a period of time where some of the tax credits that they're using to help finance the project require it to be a rental project. But at the end of those tax credit periods, their intention for their own financial exit strategy is to sell the property. And at that point, when they sell the property, after they pay off the debt associated with this, with their development, we will receive 10% of the proceeds of those sales. And that, again, nobody can predict exactly what the real estate market will be doing 7 or 8 years from now. Probably it won't be worse than it is right now, but you never know. If there's just even a reasonable, very modest amount of appreciation, we will see several $100,000 out of that. And if there's a significant appreciation, we could actually end up making money, potentially. I think that's unlikely, but the potential exists for that. We also, I think, should recognize that part of the reason the city loaned money into this project in the first place was to see an important downtown property renovated and put back on the tax rolls and bring bodies into the downtown to support downtown businesses and so forth, and that we will be receiving from this project. Our current estimates, based on how we assess similar properties in downtown, suggests that there's probably going to be $300,000 in new tax revenue every year coming from the completed development as well. So ultimately, in a situation where the city actually had really pretty much lost any leverage we had with respect to the finances and was basically just obligated to pay HUD back out of our community development block grant funds, we've actually been able to negotiate what I personally consider to be a pretty attractive position for us in terms of recovering most of what we otherwise would be owed. And it's particularly important to note that the people we negotiated this with do not owe us this money.
Right.
They are not the ones who originally borrowed it. They are not the same developer that originally defaulted. Those people are long gone, although we are separately working with the Lowell Development Financial Corporation that actually serviced the loan for us to recover some money from one of those parties who actually has some resources to his name through a lawsuit. And at the moment, we're very close to a settlement there where we would actually receive some money coming from that end as well on this project. He had personally guaranteed the loan as sort of further collateral.
So just back to my question, Adam, how is at the foreclosure auction, how come it was eliminated, the subordinate mortgages were eliminated? Because there was
essentially
not enough money.
Situation is TD Bank North, as the first position lender, was owed more money than the amount that the property sold at the foreclosure auction. So all the proceeds of the foreclosure auction went to essentially pay down what TD Bank was owed. So there was no money left to then start going down into the subordinate lenders, of which we were the first, but we were not the last. There actually were people who were even behind us in this chain.
So how much did the property go for, and what was?
I don't remember the exact number, but it was between $1.5 and $2 million, I think, was that was the result of the foreclosure auction. Okay. And TD Bank was owed considerably more than that. They took a pretty substantial reduction in their interest in the project as well.
Do we have any other projects that are in jeopardy of this nature, or the LDFC services them? Do we have any? Is there any speculation, anything else?
How many other, Adam, do you happen to know how many other 108 loans we have out there that?
This is it. We actually, if you'd asked that question a couple
right,
years ago, we had several.
Paid off.
They've all been paid off at this point. All the others have been paid off in full. And it's also important for the folks at home to realize that the money that we are talking about us owing to HUD is not from the city taxpayers. It does not reach down to the city general fund. The money, it only goes as far as our community development block grant, which essentially is money that is granted to us by the federal government for uses like this. And essentially what we did in making this loan in 2005, the city agreed to basically indirectly commit its future community development block grant funds, and that's essentially what's happening here. Fortunately, again, we're able to get an awful lot of the money back, and this money will come back into the, because it's related to what was originally a Section 108 Community Development Block Grant expenditure, it will come back as program income to the program. So this revenue will be used literally to pay down our debt to HUD. So it will directly reduce the amount that we owe. And again, it doesn't touch the city general fund in any respect. They
So
can't,
is this
they can't dig
managed-
that deep. We didn't pledge the full faith and credit of the city to this loan.
So is this managed through a special revenue fund in the city, or how does that work when it 108 loan?
I
Does
think
does it manage,
Maybe a
is it
question for
managed
Cheryl,
through
but
the LDFC? I mean, can
No.
you explain that, how that works?
perhaps the auditor is the best.
Or the auditor?
It's
Somebody?
basically just a receivable on our books.
Okay.
Right.
So we
Kind of a
we use the LDFC to
The servicing
to do
agent.
what? To,
Service the loan.
Service the loan,
okay,
yes.
all right.
Okay.
Thank you, Adam.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Any additional questions? Have a motion to approve by Councilor Mercia, seconded by Councilor Mendonça. By virtue of the fact that I do serve as president of the LDFC, I'm going to vote present. Any further questions, comments? Roll call, please.
Councilor Martin?
Well, wait a minute,
We need 5.
we need 5. There's no invoking, okay.
We have 5. We have 5. If we all vote yes.
It's again, I congratulate, and I'm a little nervous and just talking about it because of my role in the LDFC, but I do congratulate the good work that the city did put forward getting this agreement, because as Adam indicated, these are new players to the project, and they really didn't have to work with the city the way they have, Mr. Manager.
And Mr. Mayor, thank you for, but let me give the credit to Mr. Bakey, who really did an outstanding job in negotiating this deal. And
Yeah, I agree. Where are we in the loan repayment program to HUD? Unfortunately, there's not much we can do, but it does affect the city in this respect, that we have
A little
block
bit less,
grant
right.
money that we give out to so many agencies in the city, and we use it for streets and sidewalks and other infrastructure improvements. So it does affect us inadvertently, not our tax dollars. But Adam, where are we with, how much did we repay back to HUD on this at this point? Anything?
We have the most important thing is that we are fully current. We are not in default to HUD at all, and we never have been. We have to date paid about $340,000, I believe, back to HUD so far. 320 or 340,000 of that $2.5 million. The next payment of principal will be due in August of next year.
Okay, so we owe 2.5, we're down about 2.1, and we'll be getting between 25 and 50 to offset the 100 or 150
correct.
on a monthly basis. Okay,
And then when the property is
Sold.
sold, we'll get something, but of course, that'll be down the
10%.
road. So
right.
there'll be an infusion of money in, 2019, 20.
Thereabout.
And I'll make sure we get every
Right.
penny of it, too.
Rita will be she'll be here watching it.
You and me both, Councilor.
We've actually already started the roll call, so I'm going to have to, I'm sorry, Councilor Broderick. Roll call, please.
Okay, Councilor Martin? Councilor Mendonça?
Yes.
Councilor Mercier?
Yes.
Mayor Milonazo?
Present.
Councilor Murphy?
Yes.
Councilor Broderick?
Yes.
Councilor Caulfield? Councilor Dakota? Councilor Elliott?
Yes.
We have 5 yeas.
3
2
absent
3
and 1
absent,
present. Thank you. Moving on with the agenda. In City Council vote authorizing the city manager to submit a grant application to Federal Emergency Management Agency through 2011 assistance to, excuse me, I'm sorry, public hearing time. Let me go back to the top of the agenda. We have one public hearing this evening, National Grid pole location on Hildreth Street. The chair will open the public hearing. For those wishing to speak in favor, your name and address, please.
Good evening. My name is Dan Damaris. I work for National Grid of 1101 Turnpike Street in North Andover. At the intersection of Sutherland Street and Hildreth Street, National Grid would like to remove 2 poles and install 1 pole. Currently, the poles that are out there are called what we call guying poles. We have 2 poles out there. one will do the job, we want to remove two and install one, to put it simply.
Thank you
This
very
will not
much.
negatively affect the reliability in the neighborhood, and we feel it'll be better for the neighbors because there's less poles on the street, and that's good for everybody.
Good move.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak in favor? In favor, that portion of the public hearing is closed. Anyone wishing to speak in opposition? In opposition, public hearing is closed. The chair needs a motion to refer this to the wire inspector by Councilman Donta, seconded by Councilor Elliott. All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Opposed, the vote. Thank you. Thank you, sir. Now continuing on with the agenda. In City Council, vote authorizing the city manager to submit a grant application to Federal Emergency Management Agency through the 2011 Assistance to Firefighters Grant in the amount of $139,800 to provide funding to replace worn-out firefighters' turnout gear in the City of Lowell Fire Department. Whereas the Federal Emergency Management Agency, through the 2011 Assistance to Firefighters Grant, has grant funds available in the amount of $139,800, and whereas the City of Lowell is desirous of applying for, accepting, and expending said grant from the Federal Emergency Management Agency through the 2011 Assistance to Firefighters Grant, and whereas the grant will make available to the city the sum of $139,800 to the purchase of 75 sets of turnout coats and bunker pants in the City of Lowell Fire Department, and whereas the grant application is a grant program which require a city match in an amount of approximately $27,960, which represents 20%, which will derive from the fire department equipment budget. Now therefore be it voted by the City Council of the City of Lowell that the city manager be and is hereby authorized to apply for and accept and expend funds from the Federal Emergency Management Agency through the 2011 Assistance to Firefighters Grant in the amount of $139,800 to provide funding to purchase 75 sets of turnout coats and bunker pants in the City of Lowell Fire Department. There's no objection. Second reading by title. In City Council vote authorizing the city manager to submit a grant application to the Federal Emergency Management Agency through the 2011 Assistance to Firefighters Grant in the amount of $139,800 to provide funding to replace worn-out firefighters' turnout gear in the City of Lowell Fire Department. What's the wish of the council? Move approval by Councilman Donta, second by Councilor Broderick. Any questions? Roll call.
Councilor Martin?
Yes.
Councilor Mendonça?
Yes.
Councilor Mercier?
Yes.
Mayor Milonazo?
Yes.
Councilor Murphy?
Yes.
Councilor Broderick?
Yes.
Councilor Caulfield? Councilor Dakota? Councilor Elliott?
Yes.
7 yeas, 2 absent.
Thank you. Subcommittee reports. The chair recognizes the chair of the Finance Subcommittee, Councilor Elliott.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The Finance Subcommittee met this evening to discuss 3 items that were referred to. One is the cash policy that the newly formed cash policy that was implemented that we received a communication last week. Second item was management letter 2010 management letter that had a number of findings that we discussed throughout the meeting, and the third was the investment policy. The first item we did take up was the discussion on cash management in the different offices, and the city's auditor, Cheryl Wright, went through the process that was formalized. They indicated that there was a process in place, but this was distributed to all department heads on September 7th, and there is now a policy in place. I won't go through the entire policy. I'm wondering if, is this put online, Mr. Manager? Would it be advantageous for people if they wanted to go on to check what
Sure,
the policy is? I don't know, but I'm just thinking out loud.
You know, we could certainly put it online. You know, it's unlike the correspondence that we've had with departments that have put in place our policy regarding, or procedures regarding cash. But as this policy, we can certainly put this online.
Okay, it might be helpful just to know that departments, what people that come in paying cash, that now they will be issued receipts and they will be pre-numbered, and I won't go through the procedure, but departments that collect receipts, they're going to process a form. There's also a Munis component module to this in the clerk's office now. So in any event, that was the first item that we did discuss, and it's good to have this in place. The second item was the 2010 management letter. that the subcommittee, and let me also state beforehand that we had Mr. Sullivan from Powers and Sullivan, independent audit firm that produced and conducts the internal independent audit, was at the meeting. Council Mercier, the mayor, was there. Subcommittee members, Council Broderick, Council Mendonça, the city manager, the city auditor, and the chief financial officer, Mr. Moses. But we had a lengthy discussion on an internal weakness or material weakness that has been cited not only in this, in prior years that date back to 1999, and the issue is, is the reconciliation of cash in the treasurer's office. It's been a long-standing problem. A number of recommendations came through from the independent audit firm, and let me say there have been attention has been given to this issue, but the concern is some of the citations or some of the remarks in here that certainly is important for us to discuss and bring forward and cause for concern. So we did have a lengthy discussion about it, and currently, in order to address this, there's such a backlog in reconciling the cash, the general ledger, and bank statements in the office that the manager hired another firm, Melanson and Heath, to come in and essentially look at, investigate, figure out what transactions need to be addressed, and just the entire cash process. So that is, it's a recap of a discussion and an explanation as to what's taken place, and how to move forward, how to correct the situation, to bring resolution to this problem that's been longstanding for quite some time. The last item we did discuss just very briefly is the investment policy that was provided to the council, was also included in the FY 2012 budget. Mr. Moses did go through and give an explanation as to what the process is and what the policy is. Mr. Moses, you did indicate that there is a policy. It wasn't in our packet. Okay.
It did make it in. It will be in for next week.
It will be in next week, because I was looking
it was
high and
completed
low,
on the right.
and none of us had it. So that is forthcoming, and we did discuss it. So Mr. Moses, maybe you can just very briefly give an update as to what is forthcoming relative, because questions were asked. We have a significant amount of money in Century Bank and Bank of America outside companies, and I know there were motions in the past. How can we, without any risk or getting a lesser yield on any of our investments, what is the best way to get, can we invest, and how can we invest some of the city's assets into local banks?
Right. We actually do have significant investments now with local banks, but we are looking to add to those investments with local banks. And there's a program that I've created that is patterned after the state program that will allocate more of our cash portfolio to Lowell banks on the condition that they lend that money to Lowell businesses. And there are reporting requirements there. We're not asking the banks to change their underwriting for loans. They do that as they currently do. But we do ask that they place the loans with Lowell businesses, and they report back to the city that they've done so. It's voluntary, and each bank that qualifies under the other conditions of our investment policy, they have to be a solvent and bank. They have to be rated safe by a major rating agency. But assuming they comply with all that, they can qualify for this program.
Can we require, or we can suggest that these two banks that have a majority of the city's monthly deposits, Century Bank and Bank of America, is there any reason why we shouldn't, short of requiring them to try to service local banks in the same, local organizations in the same manner?
We can't force them, but with Bank of America in particular, they have her general banking contract. And we have a compensating balance agreement with them. So we have to keep a large deposit with them.
And do we go out to bid for, I think we had this discussion before, we go out to bid on a three-year bid because we can't go any longer than 3 years, correct?
That's correct.
Right,
Okay.
right.
And we're coming up on that, and again, that was something that our treasurer was working on,
Right.
the RFP, and will be one of the first things that the new treasurer will be working on as
Well,
well.
I mean, that's good to hear, because, I mean, Century Bank has 25 million, and Bank of America has 22 million, so
Correct.
that'd be helpful if some of the local banks could
Absolutely.
share in that. And that was it, Mr. Mayor. That was a recap of an hour-and-a-half meeting. The Finance Subcommittee recessed until, and we'll come back and have another meeting to get an update as to where we are with Melanson and Heath, and to address some of the other issues as well. I won't go through all. We did go through the management letter and spoke to some of the other findings. So we'll bring those issues back at the next Finance Subcommittee meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else on the report? Motion? Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Manager?
Mr. Mayor, the only comment I would make, and I just think it's important to note the philosophy of the administration, specifically, but I think most management teams. We look forward to the management letter when it comes out in terms of identifying issues that we need to address. We don't see the management letter as in any way it raises concerns for us, obviously, that we want to, but we see it as an important tool to us in terms of putting in place the best practices for the overall financial management. So we're pleased with the work that lies ahead of us and the accomplishments that have already been achieved. And we're looking forward to getting this cash reconciliation, which, as Councilor Elliott pointed out, has been hanging around now for 12 years. And we think we're finally at a point where we can solve that one and so many other areas of our financial management that have improved, and we look forward to making continual improvements moving forward, and we also look forward to meeting with the Finance Subcommittee within the very near future to give you a status report on those.
Councilor Broderick?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted one addition. That was a very good report on a long meeting that was had a lot of information, and thank Mr. Sullivan for coming this evening in helping shed some light on some of the the issues in his report. But I think we're expecting that we're going to meet again in 60 days or so, and there's going to be, in the next 30 days or so, a report from the Melanson company, as far Melanson and Heath, I think the name is, in terms of how to reconcile this and get it done, so that hopefully it's done and we move forward with a plan that will work once we're zeroed out. I think that was one of the problems moving forward, is we had to get to ground zero before we can put a process in place, better training and so on. And I think I look forward to that. I think it was a very good subcommittee meeting, informative for myself anyway, and I do appreciate Mr. Sullivan showing up. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilor Broderick. Anything else? Motion by Councilman Mendonça, second by Councilor Broderick, to accept the Finance Subcommittee report as a report of progress. All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Opposed, it's a vote. Any other subcommittee reports? Councilor Mendonça?
I'd just like to acknowledge that your memorandum of assigning the city clerk ad hoc subcommittee, assignments have been made, and I'll schedule a meeting at the earliest opportunity that we have for Tuesday subcommittee meeting.
Okay, thank you. For the viewing public, the mayor's office did appoint the following subcommittee for the city clerk. It's actually the city clerk ad hoc subcommittee, chaired by Councilor Mendonça, along with Councilor Martin, Councilor Mercier, and Councilor Murphy. So thank you, councilors, for agreeing to serve on that committee. And my understanding that the motions that were before us last week have already been referred to the subcommittee. Thank you. Anything else on the subcommittee? Moving on to wire inspector, we have 3 wire inspector reports from National Grid for pole locations: Willie Street pole location, Andover Street, Nesmith, 35 feet of underground conduit on Jackson Street. Need a motion to accept and adopt the accompanying orders by Council Broderick, second by Council Martin. Any questions, comments? All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Opposed to vote. Under general petitions, we have one claim, one personal injury claim. Referred to the Law Department by Councilor Murphy, seconded by Councilor Mendonça. All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Opposed to vote. We have a miscellaneous petition from Dr. Mark Romanowski, Lowell Parks and Conservation Trust, requests to name the new park behind 383 Pawtucket Street as Spalding House Park. I'd like to have a motion from the floor to refer this communication to the Board of Parks by Councilor Elliott, seconded by Councilor Broderick. All those in favor of referring the communication to the Board of Parks signify by saying aye. Opposed?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Could I be recorded as present on that and serve on the board of that organization?
Okay. Councilor Martin will be recorded as present. Moving to the motion portion of the agenda. We have 4 motions this evening. First motion by Councilor Mercia. Motion, City Council requests the city manager have the police department patrol the Mary Bacigalupo Park on Shattuck Street for trash, drug deals, and vandalism. Seconded by Councilor Broderick. Councilor Mercia.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Last week, I talked about Monsignor Keenan Park over in Centerville on West 6th Street and Hampshire Street, and I guess people were watching and said, gee, we're having the same situation over there in Mary Bacigalupo. It's the Victorian Garden / Park, and they talked about all the things that were going on there, not just one, but the residents on the Shattuck Street next door abutting that park. And they're talking about teenagers as well, going over behind that park and taking the bricks that are there and throwing them around. So right in the Mac building is the conservation, some type of state department. Maybe they should be notified as to what's going on and what do they intend to do about it, because they're related to that area right there. So I thought we could address that problem. That'd be fine. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Opposed to vote. Next motion by Councilor Mercia. Motion, City Council requests the city manager have the traffic engineer place a no parking sign behind 360 Westford Street, rear of property on Pine Street. Second by Councilor Elliott. Councilor Mercia.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I did talk to Adam Bakey earlier about this, because I think on our agenda it says 380, but it's actually 360, so I corrected it with the clerk's office. It's 360 Westford Street, but if I can explain this, and out and about again, I ran into a gentleman that said, could I have a word with you? I said, sure. If you look at the bank at Couple Square, there's a V in the street. One front of it goes to Westford Street, behind goes to Pine. Well, the man's home is 360 Westford Street, but the back of his home has a garage. And in the garage, it's really Pine Street. And so some years ago, he had Councilor Armin Mercia have the city put some orange lines indicating no parking, but evidently people aren't fluent in that particular sign language, so they didn't understand and they still park there anyway. So he's asking me if we could put a pole that says no parking, and he thinks people might be able to read instead of knowing what these lines on the ground mean. So that's what the gist of that is. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Opposed to vote. Next motion by Councilor Mercia. Motion, City Council requests the city manager investigate practices in Treasurer's Office as it relates to RMV, Registry Motor Vehicle issues. Second by Councilor Broderick.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
We did have someone registered to speak, but I don't see them.
She's not here.
Okay.
She couldn't get a babysitter, but last week I had a call from a very irate constituent who related this story to me, and I'd like to share it with you. It seems that her husband, who works in Boston, went down to renew his license at the registry. They said to him, we're not going to renew your license because the treasurer issued some statement saying that you have 2 outstanding parking tickets. They were $10 parking tickets from 1995 1997. That's 16 and 14 years ago. So I find that rather strange in that, please understand, I want people to be accountable to pay their bills, pay their taxes, pay their fees, their fines, their parking tickets. I'm not saying that they shouldn't pay it. They absolutely should. But we have to do things in a timely manner. I don't know how 5 years ago he registered his, renewed his license again. 2 years ago he re-registered his plate, and nothing happened then. Now, 14, 16 years later, all these years he's renewed things. Did this just happen quite recently? And the lady was so irate, her husband said, oh, it's all right, let me just pay it. But it isn't about the money, it's about the principle of the thing. So they said, we can't handle this. You have to, do you have a receipt that you paid it? Who has a receipt for 16 years ago? I think the law states that probably you should have your receipts saved for 7 years, but 16 years, 14 years is kind of asking a bit too much. I will tell you that I have things saved from like 35 years ago, but that's strictly me and my father from the old country saying, you want to pay once, not twice. So I have all my bills. But people aren't like that. They don't save things. I do. But I think it's unreasonable to ask and go back that far. So if we could check on the practice, and I'm not footing blame to anybody in the treasurer's office. I don't know who's responsible for this, but that's absurd. And the lady was irate, and she was going to come here and talk, but she couldn't get a babysitter, and I'm sorry for that, because she was quite eloquent and quite miffed about the whole thing, Mr. Manager.
Council,
I'm not blaming you either, but...
No, I wasn't here 15 or 17 years ago either. But we're somewhat aware of this situation. We'll get a report to the council on this matter and the practices that we use.
Is it out of the city's hands to help this guy or this woman who... This is bizarre, really. I don't think they mind paying. They told me they didn't. It wasn't a question of the money.
Right.
They don't remember ever getting the bill. Or the ticket or whatever. Maybe they did get it, and that's fine, but they should have been notified in a timely manner, not 16 years later.
Well, this is related to, in 2006, we brought on a deputy tax collector, Kellyanne Ryan, who obtained registry approval to mark for older receivables. They did so. This is 5 years after that. This person probably, the driver's license is good for 5 years. That's why this is coming up.
Well, 5 years ago, he was able to register his, renew his license.
Because he wasn't marked at that point by the registry. In 2006, which was before I got here, this is what happened.
Well, what are we going to do about this? I think this is bizarre. We have to take a loss or something. I don't want the city to take a loss, but this is ridiculous, in my opinion.
We'll get a response.
Council Broderick?
Thank you. I understand this woman's predicament here, and it happens. It's happened to me in the past from out of state, and it's become a problem. I've had to drive up to Maine and pay $250 from a ticket from the 1980s. But my concern here is that if we're allowed to do this, I think we have to collect the money on behalf of the city. But I think maybe Council Mercy's point is, what's the process if someone says they paid and we waited 14 years to, come forward and ask for the money again? But I think that we are doing the right thing by sending these bills or warrants or whatever we're calling them, that Kellyanne Ryan calls them, out. We have to collect this money. It's just because it's old and it fell through the cracks years ago doesn't mean it's not still due. If people owe the money, they owe the money. But if they paid it and now it's a difficult situation to go and prove it, I understand that. But I think that there has to be some type of, I'd be interested to find out how we're going to handle it, I guess. But I don't disagree with the policy of collecting monies that are owed. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else on the motion? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Opposed is to vote. The last motion of the evening by Councilor Murphy. Motion, City Council requests the city manager to develop with input from council, school committee, and all departments an annual legislative program consistent with our strategic goals and objectives. seconded by Councilor Mercia. Councilor Murphy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Throughout the year, we have a number of issues that come up that require some kind of legislative action, whether we send it through a home rule petition or otherwise. And so this is really similar to the model I think that's used in Roanoke, Virginia. Don't ask me how I know that, but it's similar to that in that you're tapping into the knowledge of the individual departments, the school department as well as city departments, to figure out ways of eliminating barriers and really achieving efficiencies through, a coherent legislative program throughout the year in cooperation with the delegation. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilor Murphy. Anyone else want to be heard on the motion? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Opposed to vote. I don't believe there's anything else to come before the council. Motion to adjourn. Oh, Councilor Elliott.
It's not a motion or suspension, but just an update. Mr. Manager, do you have any idea when we'll be able to start receiving our packet electronically? I mean, some of us would like it.
Excuse me. There's a program that we were putting in place through the clerk's office that MIS was working on that was designed to do that, and unfortunately that there were delays in the implementation of that. And
isn't it easy as just scanning
it's called AgendaNet, and it's being downloaded now, so hopefully it will be.
And what, you'll scan all of the additional information?
Right.
And
we can certainly, I mean, Councilor, we can certainly work to do it a little bit. The intent was to utilize this AgendaNet program that everyone was quite interested in several months back, and then it sort of fell into a slowdown, really, of implementing that. And but when we can certainly do it in a more rudimentary way of scanning in the documents and trying to get those out to you, sometime Friday afternoon electronically. Okay. We'd be happy to.
It's nice to get. I think it'd be timely. It's more efficient.
In fact, we put it on the web. We already put it up on the website at that time. So we can. We
just get so much paper, and I get so much recycling in it, and it's recycled.
Absolutely.
But if we can cut down and do everything electronically, I think it'd be very helpful. Okay, thank you.
Councilor Broderick.
Thank you. And quick question, practically speaking, are we going to have plugs installed here? Because if tonight's a pretty quick meeting, but we were here for 5.5 hours last week, I don't think a lot of the devices will last that long, so I think we got to kind of think about that.
That's another issue we'll have to look at.
Thank you.
Okay. Motion to adjourn by Councilor Mercia, second by Councilor Notz. All those in favor signify by saying aye. We stand adjourned. Thank you.